Okay, so as I was saying that you need to determine the length of the next CPU burst. Now that means what? We can only estimate the length, okay, which would be similar to the previous one. Means we will be predicting the next length of the next CPU burst based on the execution of the previous one. Okay, so can be done by using the length of the previous CPU burst using the exponential averaging method. Okay, using this method we will be able to, okay, determine the next CPU burst. Now how can we determine? So let's assume that Tn is the actual length of the nth CPU burst. Okay, that means the actual given length. Okay, tau n plus 1, okay, tau n plus this symbol is being called as tau. So tau n, a tau n plus 1 means predicted value of the next CPU bus. And the alpha, we assume alpha 2, it will be between the 0 and 1, and we'll get the length of the next CPU bus as alpha Tn, okay, plus 1 minus alpha, that is the tau 1. So alpha is a factor which is based, which is between 0 and 1, that multiplied into Tn. Tn means actual length of the CPU, nth CPU burst, okay, plus 1 minus alpha, okay, 1 minus alpha tau n. Tau n is what? Tau n is the length of the previous, okay, the length is not mentioned over here, but I am saying tau n is the length of the previous CPU burst, okay, tau n. So according to that, you will be able to obtain the tau n plus 1. This would be tau n plus 1. Okay. Based on that, whatever be the value of tau n plus 1, that would be the predicted value of the next CPU burst. Okay. Commonly, or more often, the value of alpha is being taken as what? Half, that is 0.5. Okay, now the best primitive version of the shortest remaining time first is this is being called as primitive version, called the shortest remaining time first. Okay, so what was the algorithm? Algorithm was the shortest job first, so SGF. Now primitive version of this shortest job first is being called as what? Shortest remaining time first. Okay, so this is a graph of the prediction, okay, of the algorithm, that if the time goes like this, CPU burst is for example 6, 4, 6, 4. Now in this order, if it's goes, so what would be the guess tau? Means what would be the predicted CPU burst is 8, 6, 6, 5, 9, 11, 12. Now based on that, a graph has been drawn. Okay, so this shows the actual timing, and the graph shows the predicted time. Okay. Now, these are some of the examples of the exponential average. Now we'll discuss about the shortest remaining time first. Now, shortest remaining time, now we add the concepts of varying arrival times and principles to the analysis. Okay, that means now we are considering that the process has arrived at different time. In the earlier cases, we have assumed that the process, all the process has arrived at the same time, at the 0th second. But here we are making an assumption that the process has arrived at a different time. Okay. Now, so process P1 to P4 is then, these are the arrival time, and these are the given the burst time. Now, this is the primitive shortest job first graph, means the time is primitive. Okay. So, see over here, at the 0th time, means just when we are executing our execution of the process, at that time the first CPU scheduling, that is making a decision in order, or according to this algorithm shortest remaining time, you could see that only at the 0th second, who has come? Who has come? Only the process P1 has come. Now, since only the process P1 has come, therefore, out of all the arrival process, only P1 has come. Therefore, the first CPU that will be allocated at the 0th time will be the process P1. Okay. Now, so the process starts its execution from the 0th second, and just at the 1th second, just at the 1th second, okay, the another process P2 has arrived. Clear? Now, at the P2 process, when the P2 process has arrived, okay, so there is another scheduling that is being taking place, okay, between the process P1 and the P2. Okay, now when at the 1th second. So at the 1th second means at this second, the process P1 has already executed for 1 second, 1 millisecond. Okay. So what is the remaining burst time of the P1? From the 8, it has only it already executed for 1 millisecond. So the burst time is 7. Okay. Now at the 1th second, when the decision needs to be taken, okay. Now which are the process that has arrived? One is the P1 and the other is the P2. Now P1 takes 7 millisecond and now P2 is taking that 4 millisecond. So therefore we assign the CPU to P2. Now P2, when the CPU is being executed to P2, okay, now you could see that at the 12th millisecond, at the second 12th millisecond, who has arrived? The process P3 has also arrived. Now again you could find that this is 7. Now P2 has already executed for 1 millisecond, so the remaining burst time is how much? 3. Now out of this 3, at the 12th second, there will be decision whom to assign the CPU. So again, who is having the shortest time? The shortest burst time is of the P2. So therefore, P2 will also will again be executing. Okay, we'll start the execution because we have not taken the CPU out of it. Okay. Now at the third second, another decision will take place because at the third second, the process P4 has arrived. Now when the P4 has arrived at the third second, so this P2 has already executed, okay, for 2 milliseconds. So now the total will subtract the burst time of 2 milliseconds from this 4. So the remaining is 2 milliseconds. At the fourth second, the decision will be taking out of P1, P2, P3, and 4. You could see that out of this, who is having the remaining time, the least remaining time. We could again see that process P2 is having the least remaining time. So again, we'll assign the CPU to the P2. Okay. Now, so P2 will now take the CPU time for the 4 millisecond, and it will complete its execution at the end of the 5th millisecond. So the complete execution has P2 has terminated, or the process P2 has terminated. Okay. Now after the termination of the process P2, now we have to take the decision between P1, P3, and P4. So P1 is having same, P2 is 9, and P4 is 5. So whom to will assign the CPU? Now we will assign the CPU to this P. So P4, we execute or assign the CPU for 5 milliseconds. So it starts from the 5, completes at the 10th millisecond. So at the end of the 10th millisecond, P2 and P4 has completed. Now the decision will be taken between P1 and P3. Who is having the least time? Now we could see that P1 is having the least time. So we'll assign the CPU to P1. Now from the P1, since it takes 7 milliseconds and no other process has come in between, so we'll give the CPU to the P1 to complete its execution. So it gets terminated at the 17th millisecond. Then we'll assign the process CPU to the next process, that is the P3, and P3 will execute the CPU for 9 milliseconds. So from the 17, it will take 9 milliseconds. That means it will terminate at the 26. So that means what? Total execution time, okay, of the set of process P1, P2, P3, and P4 is what? 26 milliseconds. Now what is the average time? Now what is the average time? Average time is, see, that the process at the beginning, the process. So let me just clear those all. Okay, now we could see what is the average waiting time. Now see, the process P1 has arrived at which second? 0th second. Now the process P1, now just here what it has been given the CPU just at the 0th second. So here the waiting time of the P1 is how much? 0. So let me here the first waiting time of the process P1 is 0. Okay. Now has the P1 terminated after giving the CPU? No. After assigning the first CPU? No. Because it has been the CPU has taken out of P1 at the 1th second, and from the 1th second to the 10 second, this process has to wait. Okay. Now this is what we call as the waiting time of P1. Okay. Because the CPU has been taken out of P1 at the 1th second, and the next CPU that was assigned to the process P1 was 10th second. That means Between that, what was the process P1 was doing? The process P1 was what? Waiting. So 10 minus 1 is how much? 9. So the total waiting time of process P1 is what? Similarly, we'll go to the process P2. Okay. Now see, the process P2 has come at which time? The process P2 has come at which time? At the 1th time. When was the CPU was assigned to him? See, the CPU was assigned to him at the 1th millisecond. So the arrival time as well as the coming time is the same. So initially its waiting time is 0. Next, will question was the process terminated after assigning the CPU first CPU? We could see that yes, the P2 was completed its execution, or the process P2 was completed after assigning the first CPU. So we do not have another waiting time for the process P2. So we say that P3 has a zero waiting time. Now what if what is the process P3? Now process P3 could say that process P3 has arrived at the 12th millisecond. But when was the CPU assigned to it? Now see, no P1, P2, P4, P1. Now we could see that the process P3 was assigned the CPU at the 70th time millisecond. So what is the waiting time? The first waiting time of this 17 means the time at which it was assigned the first CPU. And what is the arrival time of the P3? 17 minus 2. That is, this is the first. Now again we'll ask the same question. Was the process was being assigned the CPU next or the any other time? We could see that no. The process P3 was assigned the CPU at the 17th millisecond, and from there on it has the CPU was assigned to him up to till its completion. So there was no other waiting. So therefore the P3's waiting time is 15 minutes. Okay, again we'll go for the P4. Now P4 is, we again will see what is the P4. P4 has come at the 3th millisecond. When was the first CPU assigned? Now see, the first CPU that was assigned to him was at the 5th millisecond. So that means it has come at the 3rd millisecond. Okay, but the CPU was assigned to the 5th millisecond. So first initial waiting time is 5 minus 3. Okay, next after the 5th was the next other was the CPU was assigned to him next at any other time. Now we could see that no, that it got the process P4 has got the CPU at the 5th millisecond, and from there on it has completed its execution and 10th millisecond, and thereafter it has been terminated. So there is no other waiting time for process P4. Okay, so here the process P4 waiting time is 2. So what is the average waiting time? So 15 plus 9, 24 plus 2, 26. 26 divided by 4 is how much? 6.5 minutes. This is what we have, the shortest remaining first waiting time, average waiting time in terms of shortest remaining time first. Okay, so this is the algorithm of the is in terms of primitive. Okay, so hopefully I think everyone have understood this one. Now next we'll move to the priority scheduling. Priority scheduling is scheduling which is based on the priority. Now priority is that in each of the process, a particular priority, that is means generally a number, integer number, is associated with each process. CPU allocated to process with the highest priority. That means the smallest integer means here in terms of priority process. The smallest integer means highest priority. Means a particular process which is being assigned priority equal to 2, and a particular, if there is another process which is being assigned a particular priority as 4, that means the first process is of the higher priority. That means we have to execute the first process and then only we could execute the next. That's what we mean by the priority. Now this priority algorithm could be of two types. One it could be the primitive one and the other could be the non-primitive. Okay, now shortest job first is priority scheduling, where priority is the inverse of the predicted next CPU. Okay, now this priority algorithm could have one major problem. One is what we call as the starvation. That means what? The low priority process may never get the time to execute. How is this possible? Assume that there are set of processes, okay, which is being executed, okay, and a particular process has a low priority. Okay, for example, let me make an assumption that it is having a priority equal to 20. Okay, So that means what? That the process that are of the higher priority will get executed. Now assume that after getting executed after some time, there is some higher priority process that are greater in terms of priority than the priority equal to 20 of that of a particular process is always coming. That means what? Those higher priority process are getting executed first instead of the that priority process which is being present in the CPU, so not CPU, which is present in the ready queue with priority equal to 20, but is not getting the time to execute. This what we are called as starvation. Now, in order to avoid this type of problem in this priority scheduling, there is a solution, or there is a solution to this starvation problem is being called as what? Aging. So what is the aging? It says that as the time will process, we have to increase the priority of the process. So that means what? That you may set something like this, you may set a function something like this, that after execution of or after termination of every process, okay, will set or will increase the priority of a particular process with one. Okay, so assume that there is a priority process, there is an occurrence of this set of process. So after termination of every process, you are increasing the priority with one. So that means what? Assume that the first process has been terminated. So the process that is having the priority equal to 20 will increase it by one. That means what? We'll make it as a 19. Okay, because 19 means higher priority. Again, the next process will be terminated. We'll again increase the priority of the next phase. So after you could see that after 20 after execution of the 19 process, a termination of the 19 process, there will be a situation when this low priority process will have the priority equal to 1. That means that means what? That means the operating system will slowly execute this low priority process which was being initialized earlier. Okay, because it will have other high priority of 1. Okay, so this is how we could avoid the starvation of the process present in the priority schedule. So this is one of the example that is being given. Okay, so there is a process P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. The first time has been given over here. The priority is 3, 1, 4, 5, 2. So we could see that out of all the process which is having the highest priority, the process P2. Okay, so the priority scheduling Gantt chart. So here what is happening, the Gantt chart is actually, I don't think it's in the correct order. Okay, so what is happening? It will be something like this. The since it's a higher priority, so it will be see that at time P1, because see if this Gantt chart was would be true only if the arrival time would have been different. Now since the arrival time has not mentioned, okay, has been not mentioned, so we assume that the arrival time is of all the process at the 0th time, means all has come at the same time but with different priority. Okay, so what is at the first time we could see that the who has the highest priority? P1. So P1 is getting the CPU. Okay. So that means what? P2 will get the CPU at the first and it will start from the 0 to next. After termination of this process, who is having the highest priority? One is the P5. So from 1, the total burst time is how much? 5. So that means from 1 to 6, which will get executed? P5. Then after 6, this gets terminated. Who has the higher priority? P1. So from the P, from the 6th to the 16th, okay, from the 6th to 16th, who will execute? P. Next, will assign the CPU to P3. It will operate to P18. Okay, so this is 18. And who will get the CPU? P3. Okay, next is the P4. P4 will get the CPU for 1 millisecond, so it will terminate as the 19. Okay, so in this order, we'll get the what is the waiting time. So waiting time is what? For the P2, the waiting time is 0. For P5, waiting time is 1. For P1, the waiting time is 6. For P3, the waiting time is 16. This is 16. And for P4, the waiting time is 8. 14. So 18 plus 16, 34. 34 or 640 plus 1 is equal to how much? 41. 41 divided by 5. Okay, it is 8.2. Okay, 1. So this is would have been the Gantt chart if all the process have arrived at the zero time. If now this would be only valid if the process has arrived at different arrival time. Okay, now based on the different arrival time, this would have been okay. So this is how the priority scheduling actually works. Okay. Now we'll be moving to another type of scheduling that will be called as what? Round robin scheduling. Now round robin scheduling means that each process gets a small unit of CPU time. That is what we call as a time quantum, which we generally mention in terms of Q. Now usually this time quantum varies between 10 to 100 minutes. Now, after this time has elapsed, means after this time quantum q has elapsed, okay, the process is printed, means the process is being taken from that particular running process, and it is being added to the end of the ready. Means the process is being added to the end of the ready, okay, and the CPU is being given or assigned to some another. Now, if there are n process in the ready queue and the time quantum is q, then each process gets how much time? 1 by n of the CPU time in chunks of at most q time units at once. So that means what? So if I have a process, okay, if I have a process in the ready queue, okay, so starting from the P0 of the P1, let me take it P1, P2, okay, up to this Pn. Okay, if this number of processes are present in the ready queue, so what? Each of the process will get 1 by n of the CPU time. Okay, that means 1 by n of the most CPU means the CPU will be assigned. That means what? To the CPU will be assigned n times to this set of process. The first it will be assigned to this, then the CPU will assign it to P2. In this way, the CPU will assign first at in terms of n time, okay, or it will be assigned n times to each of this process one by one, and each of the process can take maximum of q time. Okay, that means okay, each of the process will get 1 by n of the CPU time. Okay, 1 by n, because the n is the total number of process present in chunk of q, that is q time of, okay, q time. This is the process time, okay, that is being taken. Now assume that a particular process has been assigned the CPU at this time. Okay, so the next time that the process P1 will get the CPU will be only after n minus 1. N minus 1 means after the execution of the n minus 1. So if n is equal to 10, if n is equal to 10 and P1 has completed execution, then the process P1 will be assigned the next CPU only after other nine process has completed its, not the completed means after 9 process has operated for at least, or at most, not at least, for at most few units of time. So the next allocation time of the P1 will be n minus 1 into Q. Okay, that will be at most, because maximum time that a process may take will be Q. Now why we are saying that at most? Because there could be a situation that, for example, P2 has a time, P2 has a burst time of only 1 millisecond, and that one is less than Q. Okay, one is less than Q. That means what? It will not run for Q time units, or time quantum. It will only run for Q. So therefore, P2 will have less than Q. So therefore, we are saying that any one point of time, process P2 or any process may run at most Q time. If the time quantum, or if the burst time of that particular process is less than Q, then it has to leave the CPU before completing its time. Okay, this is what we do. So timer interrupt has to be there every quantum to schedule the next say process. Okay, so there has to be a timer interrupt that after the elapse of that q quantum, the next scheduling decision has to be taken. So in terms of performance, if the value of q is large, that means if the value of time quantum is large, means if you are having a large time quantum, that means the process will approximately, you will see that it will run in some or in a first out manner. Okay, now if the time quantum is low, very small, that means what will happen? That there will be when the Q will be, or when the time quantum is very less, that means context switching will be very. Now, when the context switch will be high, you will find that but the total wastage time will be done in terms of context switching rather than the operation of the CPU. Or the CPU will function less while there will be more wastage in terms of context switching. So therefore, you have to have a trade-off between large Q and the small, and should be the Q should be chosen in such a way that it must be large with respect to context switch. Otherwise, what will happen if the context switch time, if the time required for context switching is uh, higher than the Q, then what will happen? There will be overhead will be very high. Okay, because as soon as the context switching is getting completed, there will be another context switch in a process or in order or in a queue. Okay, so that means what? You will be wasting high amount of time in context switching rather than doing any useful work using the CPU. Okay, so therefore you have to choose your time quantum in such a way that you will have a good execution process or good execution scheduling process. So this is round robin example with time quantum equal to 4. Okay, so P1 there are three processes P1 to P3. P1 taking 24 bus time, P2 3, P3 3. The Gantt chart is given over here. See, the first process that has been come here is P1. So we assign it as 24. Now since see over here, since there is no mention of the time, arrival time, we assign him the process in terms of first come first served. Most of our first come first, we'll assign to the CPU, CPU to him first. But that will be assigned to the CPU will be assigned to him only for 4 quantum. Okay, so we could see that P1 he is getting the CPU. Now P1 is getting the CPU only for 4 milliseconds. So after 4 milliseconds, we are shifting the process, shifting the CPU to P2. So after 4 milliseconds, this process P1 will have a burst time of 20 milliseconds because already 4 has operated. Okay.
সেখানে 4 কি করে হলো?
Quantum.
Oh, quantum time 4 দেয়া
Time
আছে।
quantum. We have assumed the time quantum to be 4. Okay. Okay. That means we'll assign the CPU only for 4 milliseconds. Okay. At any point.
Okay.
So at this after 4 milliseconds, this will become 20. Next we'll be assigning what to process P2. Now see, process P2 is has the burst time of 3 milliseconds, while the time quantum is how much? 4 milliseconds. But it will not complete this time quantum. So after 3 milliseconds, it will preempt the CPU. So since process P2 has completed, so we'll not assign the CPU next to it. Then the CPU will go to the P3. Now P3 is also has the CPU or burst time of 3 milliseconds. Will start from that the 7, will terminate at the 10. Now since the total execution time of P3 is completed, so it will terminate. Okay. Now, so from again P10, again we will give the process P1 for 4 milliseconds. So again we'll give a 10 plus 4 means 40. So this will become 6. Okay, now there is no other process to compete with. So again the CPU will assign to him for 4 milliseconds. Okay, so this becomes how much? This becomes 2. Okay, again the CPU will be assigned to him for 4 milliseconds. So this becomes 8. Okay, again the CPU will assign to him for 4 milliseconds. So this becomes 4. Again the CPU will assign to him. It will become assigned to him for 4 milliseconds. So at the end it will have a 0. Now after 0 means it has completed state. Okay, so we could find that what if you have to find the waiting time. So waiting time for this process P1 is here. See, process P1, the waiting time for the process P1 is how much? 0 at the beginning, here 0. But after 4 milliseconds, the CPU was assigned to him for 4 milliseconds. After 4 milliseconds, it has preempted the CPU. Now, then it has went to the waiting state. Now the next CPU that is being assigned to the process P1 is how much? At the 10th time, 10th time. So from the 4th to the 10th, it has to wait. That means waiting time is 10 minus. Okay, this is the waiting. Okay, now again we'll see what is there any waiting time of P1? No, we could not find a waiting time of P1. So process P1 P1 has to wait for 6 milliseconds. Okay. Then again for the P2,
Yes.
P2, the waiting time of P2 is 4 milliseconds. Okay. Process P3, waiting time of P3 is how much? Waiting time of P3 is 10 milliseconds. So what is the average waiting time? 6 plus 4 plus 7 minus 17. 17 by 3, whatever the value will come, that is your average. So typically, higher average turnaround time than the shortest job first. But yeah, means you are getting high average turnaround time than the shortest job first. But what is the advantage here? The advantage is the response time. Okay, so in terms of round robin, you are having a good amount of response time. So Q should be large as compared to the context switching time, as you have discussed in the previous. Q usually has actually varies from 10 millisecond to 100 millisecond. Okay, and the context switch time must be less than 10 microsecond. Okay, so this is what we have in terms of round robin setting. Okay, so this is what you have given, that if the time quantum varies, if the time quantum is very high, the context switching will be what? 0. That means what? There will be very low response. If the time quantum is 16, the quantum switching is how much? 1. But if the time quantum is very small, that is 1, what is the context switching? Is 9. That is very high. So that how we have to take that, how to set your time quantum? Now time quantum will be set in such a way that there will be a trade-off between the context switching, okay, and the number of processes that will be completed. Okay, so there has to be a trade-off, and based on that you have to set your time quantum. Okay, so this is another graph. So it says that how will you vary the turnaround time, which will vary according to the time quantum. Okay, so 80% of the CPU first should be shorter than that. Okay, that means whatever the set of process you have for execution, those must be 80% of the CPU first must be lower than the queue in order to have a good running process or good process. Okay, now will be now we have this 5 minutes left. Is there any question till now regarding the CPU scheduling algorithm? Any question regarding this one?
No.
The
Okay.
shortest.
हाँ
Hello,
हाँ
sir.
हाँ बोलो.
বলছি শর্টেস্ট রিমেনিং টাইম ফার্স্ট ওটা একবার বলুন না.
Okay. This is shortest remaining time. First, you have to, as you make this point, that the primitive shortest job first is the general algorithm. Okay, scheduling. Shortest job first, okay, can run in 2 ways, either in primitive mode or it could run in non-primitive. So the primitive version of this shortest job first is being called as the shortest remaining time first. Okay, this has to be clear. Now, what we are taking into consideration over here is that we are making a consideration of the arrival time as well as the first. Okay, so what we are taking is, say, assume that the process P1 has arrived at the 0th millisecond. So means we are 0th millisecond is means with respect to the starting the operation of this set of process P1, P2, P3 and P4. Okay, so at the 0th second means when nothing is being executing, at that time initially the first CPU scheduling decision that would take place is what? That whom to allocate the process. Now we could see that at the 0th second, which is the process that has arrived, we have seen that only P1 has arrived. So there is no other option rather than giving the CPU to whom? The process P1. Okay, so we give the CPU to process P1 which executes for 1 millisecond. Now just at the 1th millisecond there is another process which comes, that is the process number P2. So till now what is the burst waiting time after execution of the P1 for 1 millisecond? 7, and here is 4. Out of these two there will be a competition. So out of P1 and P2 there will be at 1th second since 1th millisecond since নতুন প্রসেস যে P2টা সেটা আবার অ্যারাইভ হয়ে গেছে, তাই জন্য একটা যে নতুন ডিসিশন বানানো হবে সেটা হচ্ছে P1 আর P2 এর মধ্যে। নাও P1 আর P2 এর মধ্যে সবথেকে কম সময় কে নেবে এক্সিকিউট করার জন্য? আমি দেখছি 4 মিলিসেকেন্ডের সময় কে নেবে? সে হচ্ছে P2, তাই জন্য P2 কে আমি অ্যাসাইন করে দেব সিপিইউটা। এবারে দেখো 1 থেকে 2 মিলি সেকেন্ডে এই কাজটা হবে, মানে 1 থেকে যেই 2 তে রান করবে এখানে আবার ডিসিশনটা নেওয়া হবে। কেন কেন কি
P3
2 এর অ্যারাইভাল টাইম অলরেডি P3 চলে এসেছে, ঠিক আছে? তাহলে এর রিমেনিং টাইম কত, এর 4 থেকে কেটে গিয়ে কত হলো 3। সো এট দ্য 3th মিলি সেকেন্ড এবারে কম্পিটিশনটা হবে P1 P2 এবং P3 এর মধ্যে। এই তিনজনের মধ্যে আমি দেখবো আবার এর হচ্ছে 7 3 9, তাহলে আবার কাকে সিপিইউ দেবো, সব থেকে কম মানে কি P2, P2 কে আবার সিপিইউ দেওয়া। P2 আবার 2 থেকে কত রান করবে 3, না যেই 3 রান করবে আবার একটা নতুন প্রসেস এসছে না, যেহেতু একটা নতুন প্রসেস আরাইভ করেছে তাই জন্য আবার ডিসিশন হবে এই চারজনের মধ্যে আবার কাকে দেওয়া হবে। ততক্ষণ এই P2 কতক্ষণ রান করে গেছে, 2 সেকেন্ড রান করে গেছে, তাই জন্য এর অ্যারাইভাল টাইম থেকে বাস টাইম থেকে 2 সেকেন্ড মাইনাস মানে 2 সেকেন্ড, তাহলে এর রিমেনিং টাইম কত 2 মিলি সেকেন্ড। তাহলে এদের মধ্যে কম্পিটিশন মানে 7 2 9 5, তাহলে আবার কে পাবে সিপিইউ
P2
সবথেকে কম কে P2, তাই জন্য P2 কে আবার দেওয়া। এবারে দেখো কেউ নতুন প্রসেস আসছে না, এর মানেও কমপ্লিট করে যাবে কত 5 মিনিট। তো স্টার্ট করেছে 1 থেকে কমপ্লিট করেছে 5, ওকে। এবারে 5 মিলি সেকেন্ড আমি দেখছি প্রসেস P2 কমপ্লিট হয়ে গেছে, এই জন্য কেটে দিলাম, কম্পিটিশনের বাইরে চলে। তারপরে দেখছি কি আছে P1 P3 আর P4, আবার ওদের মধ্যে কম্পিটিশন 7 9 5, সব থেকে কম টাইম কার কাছে দেখছি 5
4
তাহলে 4 কে অ্যাসাইন হবে। এবারে কেউ ইন্টারাপ্ট করার মত মাঝখানে কেউ নেই, তাই জন্য 5 থেকে 10 পর্যন্ত রান করবে। আবার 10 জন যখন তো শেষ হয়ে যাচ্ছে তখন কম্পিটিশন হবে P1 আর P3, P1 P3 এর মধ্যে সবথেকে কম কে 7, তাই জন্য P10 থেকে 17, আবার 17 থেকে কি আছে লাস্ট থেকে বাঁচলো P3, 17 থেকে
P3
এই হিসাবে রান, ঠিক আছে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার
So this is what you have in terms of scheduling. Clear? So the time will automatically lapse after. So we'll actually take. You will get the. You have already obtained the your this